You're the author of this bill. Explain how it would work.
If you paid your 2018 property taxes in 2017, I think you should be able to deduct them from the federal form. And in New Jersey, we assess property taxes, and they've already been assessed for February and May of 2018, but not for August and November. But if you've made a full yearly payment, David, I think you should be able to take that deduction.
When do you plan to introduce this bill, and what sort of challenges do you expect here?
It'll be introduced next week when we're back in session, and I've received bipartisan support on it. But it's really to encourage the IRS to review its ruling that said you could only get the benefit if you had paid property taxes in 2017 for that portion of the assessment that had already been made for 2018.
So, Congressman, you've said before you are also concerned with the deficit, not just about state and local taxes. What would this do to the deficit? Wouldn't this cost the federal government some money if you calculated that number?
I think it would be very modest because not a lot of people actually did this, but I certainly think you should have the ability to continue to do it. Regarding the deficit, that's another principal reason that I voted against the bill. I don't want to raise the taxes when the deficit. When President Obama was president, I was concerned about raising the deficit, and I think I should remain consistent now that President Trump is president.
You've been home during the holidays. What have your constituents been telling you?
My constituents want to continue to have the deductibility of state and local taxes, and I hope we can revisit this issue in its entirety moving forward. But my bill is aimed precisely at those who paid their taxes in 2017 for the 2018 tax bill.
If you are successful, in fact, this becomes law, you overrule the IRS, it does only take care of 1 year. I mean, going forward, it doesn't help those of us who can't take those state and local tax deductions going forward. What can be done about that?
I think we should revisit the whole issue, and indeed I would hope that the White House might look at that whole issue. And governors of various states are attempting to see if there's a way around this, and indeed some have indicated that there might be a suit in process. I don't know whether that would be successful or not. But just because this law has passed doesn't mean that we can't revisit it moving forward.
To your point, governors and legislative leaders in various states have actually taken action. This was on the New York Times talking about them in New York, California, other states considering legal challenges to elements of the law. They're considering changing their state tax codes to allow residents to take advantage of other federal tax breaks. So in effect, restoring deductions of the tax law scaled back. This is sort of gaming the system a little bit. How do you feel about that?
I think that we should examine all possibilities, but I think the best way to do it is to continue to preserve the deductibility of state and local taxes, and I think Congress should revisit that issue, Sherry.
Have you had conversations with Governor-elect Phil Murphy?
I have not, but I wish him well as he moves forward, and I was recently told that I've been invited to his inaugural ceremony, which will be on January 16th. I want to work with him and with other leaders across the country. This has been in our tax code since 1913. This is not new, and I don't favor paying taxes on taxes.
Let's go back for a moment to balancing the budget, or at least cutting the deficit some. The only way this act got through Congress was by the pay-fors that came from the really limitation on state and local taxes. So if you were actually to go back and redo this, that either means you have to take away some of the tax cuts, or you have to find another way to pay for it. Which is it?
I think that the corporate tax rate should have been lowered, but I'm not sure I would have lowered it to 21%, perhaps 25%. That's still very generous. I want us to be competitive across the globe, but I do think that 25% might have been a reasonable compromise, David.
But there's no way to go back now.
There's always a way to revisit tax law, and let's make sure that we continue the fight on the deductibility of state and local taxes.
Talking about deficits, we also have, of course, a spending deal coming up. That's going to be a huge issue, taking up a lot of Congressman's time. And we have this meeting today between congressional leaders and White House officials. What's the likelihood that the government will be largely shut when President Trump gives his State of the Union on January 30th?
I do not favor shutting down government. I voted to continue funding right before Christmas. I was critical of Democrats who did not vote for that, and I think that we should always fund government, the essential functions of government. Certainly we need to address the DACA issue, and I think those will be the discussions that will be occurring today with administration officials. But under no circumstances, Sherry, should we be shutting down the government. I did not vote for that when Barack Obama was president, and I would urge Democratic colleagues not to vote for that now that Donald Trump is president.